Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dr. Hickman, and I wanted to go over the differences between assessments and activities. There was some confusion about the differences between the two, and I simply just wanted to go over those things so that you guys have a better understanding of that. On both sides, there was some confusion. There were some guys who were presenting objective tests as assessments, but then persuasive essays as activities. And it's important. I want you guys to understand this off top that assessments determine understanding. Activities are lessons that are designed for students to have fun or to simply display their knowledge, whereas assessments determine and assess understanding. This does not mean that understandings cannot be fun and engaging. If they are fun, if they are engaging, and they are still an actual measure of students' understanding, then you hit the jackpot, ladies and gentlemen. That's what you really want to do. But assessments by themselves do not mean that they cannot be fun and engaging. And remember, activities more or less focus on simply knowledge recall. And I know I made that feedback on a lot of people's assessments or activities that you guys turned in. Again, assessments ask students to do the subject, to make judgments, to evaluate, to create, to produce. This particular assignment is an example of an assessment. If I gave you guys an activity as it related to this, then that would simply have been you guys maybe taking a quiz or a test, studying and memorizing chapter 7 and 8 in UBD, and then being asked to regurgitate it on a paper, not paper, obviously, since this is a online class, but you get the point. You would not have been engaged in the subject. But it's an assessment because I have you guys doing the actual work that you will be doing as a teacher. That's the critical piece about this. And by doing that, I am able to determine whether or not you understand it. And because of this, now I can see that a lot of folks didn't understand it. So now I have to change up how it is that I teach to make sure that I elicit everybody's understanding. That's different. And as I was thinking about this, I really can't come up with a fun activity for this particular assignment or even in this class period because I have to teach you guys how to teach. That's an important piece. I like to say that all education is vocational education. So I'm teaching you how to do the subject, how to teach. I'm teaching you how to create curriculum and how to develop your pedagogy. That's important. So the very fact that I'm able to provide you feedback on an assignment is the very first indication that this is an assessment. The feedback that you provide for an activity, like an objective test, like multiple choice or true and false, God forbid, don't ever do that, or matching. What you do with those types of things is you write good job, great work, things of that nature, or you put a sticker on somebody's paper. When you're doing an assessment, ladies and gentlemen, you're providing feedback. You're saying, well, let's talk about this particular point. Let me ask you a question about this particular point. Go back and redo this, re-edit or edit it. You're not doing sticker work. Now, I want you guys to think about that. Are you creating assessments or are you having your students do sticker work? Hopefully, it's not sticker work. Now, along the way, they might need to do something like that to build foundational knowledge. But what I want you guys to go back and look at the assessments and activities that you created. Is it sticker work or is it work where you can actually provide feedback? And the fact that I'm providing you feedback lets you know that this is actually an assessment instead of an activity. Now, notice in chapters 8 and 7 for week number 8, we focused, chapter 7 focused on the creation of rubrics. It focused on, chapter 7 focused on assessments, which was then followed up by chapter 8, which was all about rubrics used to assess understanding. Rubrics, ladies and gentlemen, do exactly that. They are tools that are used to measure the quality of student work, which again is different from an activity, which you're just trying to get a feel for what they know and able to count it and measure it in terms of quantitative work. How many did they get right? How many did they get wrong? Rubrics, however, and assessments deal with the quality of the work. You, as the teacher, are the determinator, is that a word? I don't think so. But you are the arbiter of what is quality work, and you get to determine what is quality work for that particular lesson, unit, assignment, or course. What does mastery look like in your classroom? So you get to determine the quality and the extent of what exemplary work is. So let's take a look at English language arts, for example. What does it look like to understand grammar in your classroom? Okay. Now, an activity would be simply to take a multiple choice test and give them little examples and point out where the commas should go in the sentences. That's an activity, and that's a quantitative assessment, and it has merit. There is a way in which you can use that. I'm not saying you should not do activities or do objective tests. They have merit. But what's a better activity there? Or what's a better assignment? Maybe that's the word we should use, is assignment. What's the better assignment? Having them do a test to measure how well they're able to identify those things, or to have them actually use commas, or to write an essay where you evaluate their ability to use proper grammar, spelling, and punctuation. You don't have to evaluate and assess content on every essay that you write. You could just assess, excuse me, their ability to spell properly, to punctuate, and to use grammar. That's important. Now, at the same time, I want to talk to my other content area folks about this, because your students should be writing in those classes. So you don't necessarily have to evaluate every work for spelling, grammar, punctuation, whether or not they're run-on sentences, so on and so forth. You can evaluate the essay, the paragraph, or whatever based on the content that your students provide. So that's important to understand, because I want to make sure you guys understand social studies, science, math, performing arts. You guys better have those students reading and writing in your classes. All teachers are English teachers. So you all need to be teaching students how to read, write, speak. That is necessary. So you need to make sure that you're doing that. And assessments allow you to do that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, for my science folks, because some of you guys struggled with the difference between activity and assessment. And again, I want you to think about, can there be different levels of understanding as it relates to my physics folks, whether or not it's force, the use of force and motion, or for my biology folks, whether it's mitosis and meiosis? Can there be different levels of understanding about that? What can you have the students do to measure their grasp of certain concepts and themes, okay, such as force and motion? Well, have the students create something. Have them create models that simulate real life problems. So, for example, how do police officers and investigators determine how fast a car was going based on the length of the brake marks when a car was braking to stop? How do they do that? That's a real life problem that they could solve and try to figure out. So in that sentence, they are solving a problem. Or everybody likes roller coasters, or at least in my opinion, everybody should like roller coasters. How fast does the Steel Phantom need to go in order to go through the loop? You guys are too young probably to understand that the Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood used to be the Steel Phantom. There used to be a loop in it, but I'm old enough to know that. But any roller coaster, how fast does it have to go to carry through the loop? I'm not a physics teacher. I don't know if that's force or motion, but it kind of sounds like it should be. So this way they get to do physics. Have them build a roller coaster. They get to see physics. Physicists only do the formulas as part of solving a problem. At least that would be my understanding of it. So you don't want them just to be able to do the formulas on paper. Make them do something, okay? Make them demonstrate what it is that they know. But then along the way, that's when you provide them with the quizzes. That's when you provide them with the tests. That's when you provide them with the exit slips, the entry tickets, the journal entries, to measure what it is they're learning in terms of their knowledge base to be able to do those bigger things. So I want you guys to have a good understanding of that. So I'm gonna pull out my whiteboard here so that you can see some of these things. So what are some of the words that you guys want to have that deal with authentic assessments and performances? And that's key. I think what slipped up a lot of people was the use of the word assessment versus the use of the word activity. And in education, what you're going to have are things such as that are formative assessments and summative assessments. I'm going to show you guys this. This is probably awkward, but I don't have a whiteboard in my house, if you can imagine that. So you're talking about formative assessments and summative assessments. When you're talking about formative assessments, ladies and gentlemen, you're talking about things that you use along the way of your teaching. that straight? There we go. That measure whether or not students understand certain concepts. These are quizzes. These are tests. These can be simple things like thumbs up, thumbs down. Nod your head up and down if you understand it, side to side if you don't. So those are the types of formative assessments that you use the information from that to determine and to let you know where your teaching needs to go. A summative assessment is something that you give at the end of a unit so that you can see what knowledge they gathered on the whole for the whole unit. So this would be a chapter test, this would be a midterm, this would be a final, PSSAs, keystones. These are all examples of summative assessments, okay? When you're talking about the type of assessments that Wiggins and McTighe are talking about, you're looking to see if your students can do things such as this. Can they demonstrate? Can they show? Can they summarize? And my pen is working out, is not. Can they exhibit? Create, that's a huge one. Can they produce? These are all example words that I want you guys to keep in mind, and you can add on some things to this. Can they assess? Let's see, what's the best way to do that? There you are. Can they perform? Can they judge? Those are the types of things you want students to be able to do to measure what it is that they understand, okay? So I think that's very important that you guys understand that in order if you're going to move forward. Now, for my folks who are doing art and foreign language and whatnot, a lot of this probably comes natural to you because these are already performance-based disciplines. They already require students to practice and allow for you to teach and measure their performance in an authentic context. So you're going to hear that phrase a lot in education, an authentic performance, an authentic task, or a performance task. You're going to hear that a lot, ladies and gentlemen. And again, those are the types of things where students get to do this. They get to demonstrate, show, exhibit, create, produce. Those are those authentic tasks. You put them in a real world context. But the foreign languages, the performing arts already do these things. I can remember when I was in high school long ago taking a Spanish class, we never engaged in conversation with each other. We learned vocabulary words, we learned how to conjugate verbs, but we never talked to one another. I talked into a tape recorder that my teacher used to grade me, but she never went back and said, okay, you messed up here, now you need to fix it. That would have been a perfect formative assessment, but the authentic assessment, the assessment would have been us having a conversation with somebody else in Spanish and then evaluating how well that conversation went so we could determine whether or not we understood what it is that we said and what somebody said to us. My folks who do art, performing arts, you guys do this all the time. You measure how somebody has grown in terms of whether or not their art ability is. Hopefully, if I took an art class, the art teacher would not assess my final product because my stick figures come out crooked. But if they could measure how far and how well I can do shading and how better I get at that, then that's doing the assessment. For my performing arts folks, you guys are able to practice, rehearse, go back, practice, rehearse. You're able to do more coaching. And education is something they talk about either as a teacher, you can be the sage on the stage and you're the one talking, or you could be the guide on the side and you're facilitating and the students are doing. It's a very important question I want you guys to answer. When you go home from teaching, who's going home tired? Is it you or is it the students? The right answer there is the students should go home tired because you have them doing things. If they're not doing things and you're going home tired because you were the sage on the stage and not guiding their learning and not putting them in positions to do the work, to become masters and be able to exemplify and show that, then there's a problem. You need to be the one who sets them up and puts them in positions to do the topic, to do the subject. Those are the assessments. Go back, read pages 153 and 154 in UBD. It goes over exactly what the different contexts of assessments are and what different elements of understanding that they should cover, okay? Hopefully this will help many of you out. You know I had to get through it quickly. I got 15 minutes to be able to put this on YouTube. Right now I'm at 14:30, so this should be done. Remember, some of you want to get together and Skype this Sunday. We can certainly do that, but hopefully this helped you guys. And please provide me some feedback to let me know whether or not, again, that I need to go back over this, because this is important. These are some key principles to understanding that. So at this point, 14:47, I'm going to sign off, ladies and gentlemen. Get at me if you have some further questions.